Let's bring in our panel now. And joining me from Berlin, Salman al Ansari. He is the founder of the Washington-based Saudi American Public Relations Affairs Committee. And with me on set is Klaus Jurgens, political analyst and opinion writer. Thanks both so much for joining us. Klaus, let me just begin in the studio with you. In your opinion, the EU needed to do this. In fact, some even argue it was long overdue. Why is it necessary to put Saudi on this blacklist?
Well, I think we have to go back in time a little bit. If we go back to the year 1985 and Maggie Thatcher's £42 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. At the time, it was perceived as, is it really necessary? But there was no huge public outcry about it. Now, fast forward to today, Europe has changed. Europe has changed opinion. People are now much more aware about what is going on in the world, with which countries should we actually cooperate. So I'm not surprised at all that the European Union, the European Commission, initially now has decided to add Saudi Arabia onto that blacklist. It didn't happen overnight. It is a long-term process. Public awareness has changed. What used to be left-leaning student movements, debates only, why do we need arms sales, all of a sudden have become mainstream. The public wants to know with whom do we deal and why. Germany as a case in point. I remember the foreign minister setting out his agenda and saying, do we really have to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, and what would happen with those arms? Against whom would they be used? And this was before actually the Khashoggi case happened. So there is public awareness. The European Union wants to set a signal, but the European Union did not want to punish Saudi Arabia. What I understand reading between the lines of the commissioner, they basically want to help Saudi Arabia to change and to upgrade its financial system, to leave the door open. So I wouldn't call it a sanction. I would rather call it a kind of a warning shot vis-à-vis Saudi Arabia, but a serious one, which can have a lot of repercussions, in particular talking about the reputation of that country.
But it's an invitation to reform. Let's put it that way. That sounds quite diplomatic in those terms. But Salman, you believe this was a big miscalculation on behalf of the EU that will ultimately be rejected when it comes down to the vote by all 27 EU members. Why?
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all. I'm almost certain that this will happen because I think the EU has huge interest with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is considered to be the biggest trading partner for more than 80% of the EU members. And when we speak about the AML and CTF, anti-money laundering and combating terrorism financing efforts of the kingdom, let's be very clear, like the only organization that is considered to be legitimate for all the world is FATF, which is in Paris, which is the Financial Action Task Force. And they visited Saudi Arabia last year, and they concluded with their findings and a report of more than 240 pages, and they said it clearly that Saudi Arabia is progressing a lot in this field, and they have a very effective mechanism to combat terrorism financing, terror financing, and also a very effective mechanism on combating money laundering. And let's be very frank, Saudi Arabia has been the biggest victim of terror attacks. So it doesn't make sense if Saudi is lenient when it comes to eradicating extremism from its roots. But I think there are some kind of political games within the EU. I'm sure that the Commission report, which we didn't even see as a tangible report, because up till now we just saw like a list of countries that have been put there with very minimal like kind of phrasing that say this is the reason we've done so. But did they visit the kingdom, or they were just relying on public perceptions and Google, which is not something to be credible. So what I'm trying to say here is you cannot put countries in such a list just to shame them because you have other interests with another country, which is Iran. This is very unfortunate action by the EU, and I do not think it will pass, and I'm pretty sure that the majority of the EU countries will reject this.
Okay. I mean, Iran is also on this blacklist, it has to be said. But I mean, let me ask you, Klaus, on that the basis at the beginning that Salman was arguing here is that this EU decision runs contrary to the decisions of other EU-based institutions that have said Saudi is in compliance with financial regulations and that there is this transparency. How is that happening?
Well, I think we have to put it into a political dimension. The commissioner in charge said after the vote that Europe is no laundromat for dirty money. This was literally her wording. So I would discreetly not agree with my esteemed colleague. There was actually an explanation given by the Commission, including that the vote counting has already started. And I would actually say I'm pretty certain it will pass. How do I come to this point? The German Finance Ministry issued a statement only some short while ago, and they said we did not vote against having Saudi Arabia on the list. You mentioned the word diplomacy, but as a matter of fact, they will not vote against the entire list, from what I heard. Now we would have France and Italy, assuming that the Commission will be very clever and the final vote will happen after Brexit, aka early April. United Kingdom is no longer in the mix. If this is the case, I'm pretty certain the two-thirds majority would actually find its way into the decision-making. Why the Commission now? Europe is looking for new ways to integrate itself. Europe is looking for post-Brexit ways. Europe is even considering a defense mechanism or a European army. Perhaps this is what Merkel and Macron mentioned. I'm not surprised that the European Commission now is doing one step ahead of time, even if other EU bodies or international institutions would say we do not see Saudi Arabia on this list. They simply say the financial control mechanisms are too lax, and Saudi Arabia has to change it.
Well, let me ask Salman then. I mean, if we can say hypothetically, if the EU passes this, and you know what, in a sense, even if it doesn't get through, will Saudi either try to retaliate? Does it have tools at its disposal to retaliate in a sense? Or would Riyadh just have to take this hit and look at changing its behavior and accepting this invitation to reform the institutions that this blacklist has said are not sufficient?
Great question. I think every country in this world needs to advance its mechanism when it comes to combating terrorism financing, when it comes to money laundering, etc. But what we want to say here is that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been following the international 40 recommendations when it comes to combating terror financing and the AML. And if we go back to the document of FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force, the methodology, there is a document in 2013, and they kept using it up till now, which is called the methodology report. And it's a very, very comprehensive strategy that the FATF organization have to check in every single country in this world. And it's an international body that all governments who wants to be part of the financial system participate in. So if we see the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to be projected by this report as an effective body when it comes to combating terror financing, and we see all of a sudden a commissioner who wants to label Saudi Arabia or shame Saudi Arabia in such a way without any basis, then there is an issue here, an issue of trust. And I do think that it's more of a political action than a report that they have worked on, because if you want to work on a report, you need to come to the kingdom.
Fair enough,
you need to
Salman.
visit officials. You need to see what's going on. But yeah.
If it is a political measure, we can talk about that. Because the issue then is also that this EU blacklist is added to the fact that the US Congress just withdrew its support for the Saudi war in Yemen. Now, that may be vetoed by President Trump. We don't know what the endgame for that yet will be, but the support in Congress against Saudi is now there. And the larger question is, with this EU momentum, US momentum building against Saudi, but the broader issue is that, and then our reporter said as well in his report, is that Saudi might be losing its status now as a top strategic partner of the West. Let me bring it back to Klaus, and I'll get your opinion as
I
well,
do not
Salman.
Yeah.
Is this a broader
Sure.
movement you're seeing here, Klaus, that Saudi is falling out of favor as a top strategic Western ally?
I would not go that far as of yet, but if we take a look at precedents, you mentioned Yemen. The European Parliament spoke about women's rights and human rights. And then we had the murder case here in Istanbul on Turkish soil, which led to great, not only confusion, but resentment, of course, serious resentment, in particular in Germany. And if you put all this together, you can't simply say, we have one country here which makes one mistake and another mistake, and serious ones, and we then turn a blind eye to another issue, which would be financing or perhaps money laundering or financing of terror. We had a debate recently about what happened in Kosovo. Now the question is, would Saudi Arabia use international aid or financing to support movements which others would not regard as peace-loving movements? Now, the whole thing is a kind of political debate, indeed. It was not only one issue. I think it built up over time and over time. And the Khashoggi case, I think, was one of the tipping points, to be honest, yes. Of course, there is a political debate. And why would the European Commission not have a right to issue a political statement, albeit in the form of setting up a blacklist?
Okay. Then let me get to Salman. I mean, do you acknowledge that there could be a broader trend here of Western support turning on Saudi over the course of years now of human rights violations, a general opposition to the ideology of the Wahhabist regime that's in power in Saudi Arabia, its attitude towards women, its human rights record? Do you fear that there could be a trend building?
I don't see it this way at all. I'm not trying to be optimistic or pessimistic, but what I'm just trying to analyze the situation as it is. Saudi Arabia has been going through the biggest reforms in its history during the last 3 years. We do not need the other countries to either clap for us or to condemn us. All what we want is just for us as Saudi youth and Saudi community to move forward towards Vision 2030, towards diversifying our economy, towards having more stable region. And we all know the bad players in the region. And unfortunately, the EU is trying to shame Saudi Arabia while they are trying so hard. The same commissioner who released that report is trying so hard to do business with Iran, even through a back channel. So which country is the one that really should be in a position where they should be concerned about money laundering and supporting of terrorism? Because we all know that 60% of the economy in Iran is controlled by a terror group, which is IRGC. So the moment we see this kind of hypocrisy by some partners, unfortunately, and some people within those countries in the Western nation that want to shame Saudi Arabia just to take some kind of advantage that Saudi Arabia will always be there for them, and they want to open up with Iran. Yes, you want to go open up with Iran, it's your business. But do not think that opening up with Iran should make you to come to Saudi Arabia and criticize Saudi Arabia days and nights. So what I'm trying to do, and what I'm trying to say here is, we should get back to our senses. When it comes to the list, the blacklist thing, the biggest party that will be damaged by this are the businessmen in Europe itself. It's not the Saudis, because most of the companies that are actually wanting to invest in Saudi, wants to do business in Saudi, the people who work in Saudi will be having an issue with their remittance, will be having an issue with the transfers, etc. So here's something we have to look at, and I think this is just a political game.
I was hoping we'd have time to discuss that as well, because we do know that there are a number of financial partners in Europe, particularly in the UK, that have a lot of vested interest in Saudi that many say has hindered the EU's work to try and condemn Saudi for whatever illegal maneuverings they feel might be there. But unfortunately, we are completely out of time, and I'd like to thank Salman and Klaus both so much for joining us on this edition of the Newsmakers.